Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the AgroFresh MasterClass Quality and Freshness webinar series. My name is Emily Gant. I'm a Senior Account Manager in the Pacific Northwest. Over the last few weeks, we've been working on providing information on our portfolio. We've looked at Fresh Cloud, SmartFresh, our quality system, as well as Harvesta. And this week, for our Freshness webinar series, we're going to be talking about fungicides and coatings. First, we're going to hear from Juan Francisco Vargas, our technical manager for AgroFresh R&D. He'll be talking about quality and freshness from storage to packing. And then we'll hear from AgroFresh's senior account manager in the Pacific Northwest, Stacy Young, who'll be talking about AgroFresh's freshness solutions portfolio. Before we get started, I wanted to just give a quick review of AgroFresh. So AgroFresh is the leader in post-harvest freshness solutions for the fresh produce market. At AgroFresh, we find ourselves in the middle of these four main pillars for our customers, which would be in the field, in storage, in transit, and in retail, looking to provide freshness and quality solutions across the entire supply chain. At AgroFresh, our mission is to combine deep scientific knowledge with applied industry know-how to extend shelf life of the best tasting produce to help prevent food waste. We're able to do that by having products sold in over 50 different countries and protecting over 25,000 storage rooms. The AgroFresh difference addresses customers' needs by reducing waste and maintaining quality across the whole supply chain with our near harvest solutions, post-harvest storage, packing, and processing solutions, as well as in transit and retail. So we talked about our Harvesta, which is our field ethylene management system, as well as SmartFresh for storage. Today we'll be talking about Actimist and ActiSeal portfolio, but also some other new exciting news is that this year we also will have our Techstar DPA, Serafruta, which is our organic biofungicide. We'll hear more today about our organic coatings, Tycer Prime Elite, as well as looking into some of our VitaFresh botanicals lines as well. In our first webinar, we mentioned our partnership with Strela, so we've added that to our list of portfolio items as well. All being able to use our Fresh Cloud platform to really see that end-to-end visibility all the way from near harvest to the retailer. We're able to do this with our global presence. So as we can see here, all of the green dots on the map are our R&D centers globally, with Philadelphia being our global headquarters for our company. And so we sell direct to over 3,700 customers. We're located in key growing regions, which allows us to share information back and forth across the globe with our partners in different areas to make sure that we're providing the solutions that our growers need. So to start today, we're going to pass it over to Juan Francisco Vargas to talk about fungicides and coatings, quality and freshness from storage to packouts. And then we'll hear from Stacy Young on the AgroFresh Freshness Portfolio Solution. And then we'll join for a Q&A session with one of our scientists, Dr. Dan McLean, from External Innovations from R&D and AgroFresh. So for now, we'll pass it over to Juan Francisco.
Hello, today's webinar is about fungicide and coatings, and we're going to talk about quality and freshness from storage to Packout. My name is Juan Francisco Vargas from the R&D department of AgroFresh. Today we're going to discuss about decay and rot, which is a major factor in food waste. We're going to talk about diseases and how to manage them, and we're going to talk about AgroFresh solutions, fungicides, coatings for apples, and sanitizers. Here we can see the major contributors to post-harvest losses, which is we can start from the off-grade, which is a waste that we have when we are processing the fruit. So we are going to lose a lot of fruit there from the packing house, which is going to be for color, size, shape, all that kind of stuff. Then we will lose some fruit for disorders, that is just physiological disorders that we have, or nutritional deficiencies or storage factors. Then some damages that is just a typical mechanical damage that can happen during harvest, during the packing, or the transportation, or even at consumer level, or even in the retail. Then we will have some shriveling, that is the water loss. Of course, it's going to affect the appearance of the fruit and the texture, and it's going to affect the weight. And then we have the decay. So this is one of the most important parts. It's estimated that the 10% to the 30% of overall losses happen because of this reason, and it's caused by fungi and bacterial pathogens. And then we have, of course, the senescence, that is just the physiological breakdown of the fruits, which is induced by ethylene, and just as the natural process of aging in, of course, all fruits. But we are going to focus today in fungi because those are the ones that cause most problems in the post-harvest. And this is, of course, the most economically important reason that we need to be controlling. And one particular thing about fungi is that spores that they produce can be very resilient, and they can be transported through the wind, through the air movement, inside closed storages or closed environments, can be transported by water, by equipment, or any contact surface that they are facing in during the chain. And of course, they attack by the weakness point of the fruit, which is generally a small wound or by an opening in the calyx or the stem. And it's really critical to control fungi at early stages because we need to control the population before it's too late to control. And something very important here is resistance to fungicide, because we need to properly use them as an integrated program during the chain. So where can this infection happen? We are going to have some pathogens that are going to attack from the orchards and then in the post-harvest. In the orchard, we can have these fungi in the field, in the all the materials that are connected to the trees, and even in the beans or through the wounds that are happening during the harvest. And in the post-harvest, it's going to be kind of the same, because you are going to have all these pathogens circulating through the air or the storage in the beans too. And then you are going to have some bruisings and some wounds happening in the fruit during the line. So that's why it's so important to handle carefully all the fruit during all the process. And then the transportation part and display is very important to manage, of course, very carefully the fruit, because any wound is going to be an entrance for pathogens. Some of the most important post-harvest diseases in Washington, we are showing here Washington, but probably generally for apples and general orchards. It's going to be blue mold, gray mold, and bull's eye. This is Penicillium, botrytis, and Neofibria. And here we are seeing that from the total growers, it's clearly that the blue mold is one of the most important ones, and of course is the same relationship between the gray mold and bull eye. Those are the three major post-harvest diseases. Now, these are the most important, but we have more. We have mocha rot, speck rot, and spiropsis rot. And these, all of them, will require just a small wound or a bruise to infect. And those are not just the only ones. Those are the most important ones, but we have additional ones as Rhizopus, black rot, Pachydium, and Lambertella, that will affect the fruit the same way. You just need some small wound to infect, and that's it. Now, so to manage all these diseases, we need to have a program, an integrated program. And in order to do that, we need to understand this. This is the most important thing, is that disease triangle. This is very common to see in every disease management program, which is conformed by the host, the pathogen, and the environment. You will need a host that's going to be susceptible for the disease. And of course, I was talking before, you need a wounding for the pathogen to enter to the fruit. So preventing any injury during the harvest of processing is critical. And a form of mitigation will be having sound fruit and increasing this vitality of the fruit, which is, we have here a great example using Harvista, that is an ethylene blocker, which will prolong the fruit and will have more firmness. So we're going to have a stronger fruit. And it's the same happening in the ripening in the storage with SmartFresh. You're going to have a firmer fruit, which is going to be stronger for longer period of time. And maintaining a healthy skin, you can use some coatings to cover the fruit, so it's going to be a barrier for this pathogen. So all those concepts are related to the host. Now, the pathogen is, of course, the one who is going to create the problem. It's going to be just a disease. And what is the ways of mitigation for this? Cleaning surface, of course, removing any source of infection, it will be critical. Isolate the problem. If you know that you have some fruit with problem, you can isolate those problems for the clean fruit. And chemical control, you will have fungicides, sanitizers, and fruit processing aids. So those are the ways to control this part of the trend. And then the environment, ways of mitigate this. Of course, you need good environment for the pathogen to attack the host. So you can control the temperature. Keeping lower temperatures will keep the pathogens under control. Well, we are going to see that those the three ones that are most important is because they can develop in cold temperatures. The moisture is going to be critical as well. Atmosphere control will inhibit the fungal respiration, so it will keep the pathogens under control as well. And the effluent management will reduce the rate of pathogen infection as well, so it's very important too. So these are the tools for managing the case. We will have these three groups, which is sanitizers, coatings, and fungicide. The sanitizer basically is just cleaning the surface, so you will destroy the microorganisms. You can use it in in the water, in the surface, or clean the equipment and storage room, because any source of pathogen is going to be in this surface. So it's just disinfecting and keeping these pathogens under the level that it's going to affect fruit. Sanitation after harvest can reduce spoilage by 50% or more. So it's very important to use sanitizers as one of the main tools for managing decay. And the good thing is can be used in combination with fungicide. So it's this synergy that will will help us to control decay. Coatings, as I said before, is going to be a barrier. So you are going to protect the fruit against the pathogens, and any entrant that you have will be protected. And of course, you are helping too with the shriveling, because you're going to keep the fruit keeping the water inside, so it's not going to lose a lot of water. And fungicide, of course, is a chemical way to control pathogens. It's highly effective, but it's very important to control the doses and follow all the protocol, because otherwise we're going to have another issue, which is resistance. So here we have a table showing the frag group by fungicide and by pathogen. Resistance is going to happen because these have different mode of action, which is the biochemical pathway for within the pathogen, or they are going to affect the target site, which is specific for enzymes or during the process that is affecting. So some of them are going to affect different pathways. So that's important to not create the resistance. So how can we avoid these resistance issues? Resistance management is important. You're always going to have a small part of the population that's going to be resistant. So it's critical to mix frag coats and rotate them. So that way you are going to start killing the population and avoiding having these pathogens to replicate and keep growing. You're going to have different limits, and you need to follow the doses that are showing in the label. You don't cut rates. That is very important to keep this pathogen under control. If you fail to do that, you are gonna provoke resistance, and those groups are gonna make it out of control. So it's very important to follow the indications, follow our rotation program between frag coats, and following this resistance management program year after year, because as we saw before in the other slides, pathogens are going to stay in all these parts of the chain. So it's very important to keep rotating them year after years to control all the pathogens that have been doing that year. So we're gonna, if you have some questions, I'm gonna be available at the end of the presentation.
Great, thank you, Juan. So what we're going to do now is we're going to pass it over to Stacy Young, but just wanted to send out a quick reminder that if you guys do have questions, to put them in the Q&A section, and we'll answer them at the end as we come back for the Q&A. So for now, we'll pass it over to Stacy.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. So my name is Stacy Young, and I'm an account manager in the Yakima area for AgroFresh. And what I'd like to do is just take a few minutes this morning to go through our list of products that we have available to help you with your fungicide and quality program. So this first slide, you're going to see basically products that the industry is familiar with. The traditional Scholar, Murtec. We also have Scholar Max, and Academy is a new fungicide, or I say new, but it's been around for a few years. But this year we're able to use it as a dust abatement. We received EPA approval for that late last season, so Academy is available for drench this year. And we also have the traditional pyromethanol fungicide. So we'll first talk about our drenchable products, and our trade name for our drenchable fungicides is ActiSeal. And I'm not going to go through all the bullet points. I think everybody's very familiar with the traditional post-harvest drench system that we run the trucks through. I just want to point out again that we call these products ActiSeal, and we have a full line of the traditional fungicides this season, along with DPA, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in another slide. So ActiMist is our trade name for our foggable fungicides. And ActiMist has been around for, I think this is our 5th season, and we're very excited about it. We've had a tremendous amount of success with ActiMist over the past 5 years, or 4 years. And if you take a look in the upper right-hand corner there, that photo, you can see 2 of our ActiMist foggers on the left-hand side next to the bins there. Depending on the size of the room we have to treat, we're going to need either 1 fogger or 2 foggers. So takes up very minimal space. Those foggers are about the size of a carry-on suitcase, so very compact and easy to place in the room. ActiMist, we are able to fog both fludioxonil, your traditional Scholar, and pyromethanol, commonly known as Pimbotech in the industry. So a little bit more on ActiMist. You can see on the right-hand side there, it's actually a dry fog that the fogger shoots out of the side there. And within just a matter of a few minutes, we've shown that the entire room will be filled up with the active ingredient in the dry fog. We've had a tremendous amount of success with ActiMist. The 5 bullet points there on the bottom, I want to point out. It takes just 1 or 2 guys to set up the entire system. And we can monitor the system remotely. So as the application is taking place, we can monitor it and let the customer know when it's complete. A minimal amount of people, as I mentioned before, to set up the system. There's no ambient or outside air being introduced into the room. All of the equipment sits inside the room. So we're not pumping any outside air into your CA room. There's no venting required. And also our ActiMist can be applied at the same time as our traditional SmartFresh application, so co-treatment. I mentioned earlier, we're excited to announce this season that we have DPA available. Our trademark is Techstar. It's your traditional DPA, and we have both fogging and drenchable DPA available this season for your scald control and CO2 injury. Another exciting product that we have this season is an organic fungicide. We call this Serrafruta. It is our trade name. You may have heard about this fungicide in years past. The active ingredient is known as natamycin. And natamycin has been around the industry for several years, the food industry for several years, and had a tremendous amount of success and has shown no resistance to any of the pathogens. So we're excited to announce that we have an organic fungicide available this season. This slide just points out what Serrafruta, what it's going to cover as far as our fungus control. And you can see there, the first one on the list is apples, your traditional blue mold, gray mold, and mucor rot. Serrafruta is actively controls those traditional fungi. Also, something new this year, we have a coating, and it's an organic certified coating. It's on the OMRI list of organic use. This coating maintains firmness and fruit health. One thing that we're really excited about is we've discovered that we can apply flexible rates, and we can, if the customer wants a nice shine on that piece of fruit, we can do that, or we can reduce the rate and dilute it down and still get a nice protective coating on the apple without that shine that we know sometimes the organic consumer doesn't necessarily want. So it's still very effective, but we can reduce the rate down, get a nice coating, but minimize the amount of shine on the apple. This coating remains smooth with no significant whitening. And it also keeps the apples from developing the natural wax associated with the greasiness and tackiness that sometimes we see with some of the waxes. And again, this is called Tyser Originals Prime Elite, our organic coating for apples this season. Okay, and finally, our last slide is basically just a summary slide stating everything that I've already talked about. We have a nice line of products all the way from your storage through transportation, at the retail shelf, and even at the consumer home. So you can reach out to any of your account managers and talk about any of these products that we covered today. And with that, we will open it up for questions.
Great, awesome. Thank you, Stacy. So now we're going to join back with everybody for our Q&A. So we'll ask Stacy, Juan Francisco, and Dr. Dan McLean to come back, and we'll go ahead and answer any questions that came through. Awesome. Thanks, you guys, for joining. I guess we'll just get started. So what we'll do is we'll jump through some questions, and then as they come through, we'll all ask specific people to them. So I guess we'll start with Dr. Dan McLean, if you want to go first. So one of the questions that came in was, what are some key considerations when developing new coatings? So when we look at AgroFresh as a whole.
All right, thanks, Emily, and good morning to all. Yeah, so when we're looking at developing a new coating, first and foremost, we have to understand what the objective is of that coating from an appearance perspective. So what I mean is, is it a shine that we're looking for, a high gloss shine? Is it a matte finish? So what's the kind of the visual target? And then there's also the kind of the fruit health side of it. So is it more of a cosmetic, or is it really about trying to extend the shelf life of the product? So depending on what kind of direction we get led on, right, then we start formulating the density of the barrier, if you like, and then assess whether or not it's performing well. Is there any off flavors, any tackiness issues, hand feel issues? Is there the whitening or lensing, anything like that, as Stacy mentioned? Excuse me. And then also if there's like antifungal components, that are necessary in order to meet kind of the expectations. So those are kind of things that we look at from a performance side. And then there's also the practical application side as well. So is there any new equipment that's required? Is it compatible with the current, apparatus? And then, storability, transportability, worker exposure, mixing requirements, all those sorts of things are the things that we take into consideration when we're looking at developing a new coating. So hopefully that helps, Emily.
Yeah, absolutely. So staying on the topic of coatings, Stacy, from a commercial standpoint, does AgroFresh's coating offer multiple shine levels for the Tysoprime Elite organic coating to help fit kind of the market trends and what retail customers are looking for?
It does, yes. So like I mentioned earlier, basically all we have to do is adjust, or not adjust, but I guess dilute the amount of product that we mix into the solution. So if you want an increased shine, you're just going to leave that rate higher. If you want less of a shine, but still a nice coating on the piece of fruit to help with dehydration and overall quality, we just simply dilute the amount of product, and we found that we get a less shine on the apple, but we still get that protection. So the answer is yes.
Absolutely. I think that over the last couple of months, we've been working on some trials with our customers with this Tysoprime Elite, and the difference between the coated apples that have our coating on it versus the ones that don't, looking at the control, just really that natural wax buildup that has shown that you see in organic apples as you sit at room temperature. So if there's any other questions on this one, please reach out to any of your AgroFresh account managers to provide you some more information. Okay, next one's gonna be for Juan Francisco. So Juan Francisco, are there any other organic certifications beyond OMRI in the US? And then is OMRI certified in Mexico or Canada?
Well, we have the OMRI certification for two of our products, AgroFresh Botanicals Life US and Taster Family, which is Carnaluba and like both products are organic, so that's why we have this the certification. And for Mexico and Canada is the OMRI 2 approved, and we have the AgroFresh Botanicals in Europe as well. So those would be the certifications that we have right now.
Yeah, great. Just some other questions that came in that we may have to get back to some people on, but I wanted to just throw them out here as well. So there was a question that came in about, are the slides going to be available? Yes. You guys will get a copy of the presentation from the Zoom link that you registered on. You'll get a recording of the webinar. So you'll be able to have the slides, but I can also provide you some more information on Serafruta. So I'll answer that one. And then one of the questions came in on any progress on developing a coating for strawberries, raspberries, blackberries, specifically for prolonged shelf life. So I don't know if Dan, you want to take this one?
Yeah, good question, Nick. So yes, is the short answer to the question. And what we're working on is trying to find the right combination, as to my earlier response about the right properties and the right film coating characteristics that are appropriate for berries, right? And of course, berries are a very different surface than an apple, and as a consequence, how to apply the coating is even more important, I would say, and trying to get it the right, just the surface properties and the various nooks and crannies that are on the surface of the fruit. And of course, there's a strong fungal component as well to berries. They're very susceptible to decay, to infection, and to damage and to wounding of the drupelets and such. So we're working really hard to solve those, and we'll have something to connect with you on here soon.
Perfect, great. Okay, so then just a few other questions. Stacy, maybe this one's for you. So what separates AgroFresh's foggable fungicide application method from the rest? So when we look at, you had mentioned some different bullet points there about foggers in the room. Just what separates us from others when it comes to our foggable fungicide application method?
Yep, good question. So yeah, I think I covered some of them there. Just to recap, all of our equipment sets inside the room, so there's no outside air being pumped into your room. I think one of the biggest things that we found is our fogging equipment is able to break down the molecule size to a very, very small particle size. And by doing that, it's going to behave more like a gas. It's not a gas. It's not like MCP where it diffuses very easily without the room, but the smaller particle size allows it to behave more like a gas, which is going to give a nice distribution throughout that entire room. And you're going to get that product evenly distributed throughout the entire room, center of the room, center of the center stacks. And we've done extensive testing on that. And we have data to show that our fogging equipment disperses the active ingredient very nicely throughout the room. So that's probably the biggest thing. What did I leave out? Emily, you got anything to add?
I think just co-application with SmartFresh. And then I think also when it comes to just safety in general, with our equipment being able to go into the room, if you utilize a lot of hallways or different areas for your storage room, with everything going in the room, it really keeps a clean pathway for forklift drivers or just your employees in general. So having that safety component as well to it.
Yeah, and you mentioned the co-application, right?
Yes, yeah. Co-application with SmartFresh, fungicides, and then this year DPA as well. So some really cool things that are happening on that application side.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. So a few more questions here. So for Dr. McLean, is AgroFresh working on new chemistries? And if so, what are they?
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. We are very actively seeking out and developing new chemistries in a lot of different avenues, I guess, in parallel. So, Stacy mentioned natamycin earlier as a key organic offering, and we're continuing to look into naturals and the various types of modes of actions that are available in naturals and low risk, no residue, yet high performing and at a price point that, from a manufacturing and availability of the materials that can actually, be formulated and be offered to you all at a compelling price point. So when the natural fungicide program is very active and we're pursuing heavily. But in parallel, there's still tremendous amount of need for the conventional spaces as well. So we are, contrary to a lot of the industry, including the majors, right? We are working on conventional fungicides as well and getting, kind of a bridge, if you like, from some of those older chemistries that are, being pulled from our toolbox, and be able to, give, the next 20 years of solutions to complement the difenoconazoles and fludeoxonils and pyromethanils at the tape. So we have that ongoing activity as well. And then third leg of that stool is about the sanitizers. So looking at, other types of natural variants that kind of offer similar type of performance to the sanitizer and performance expectations of a sanitizer, but also increasing the performance and functionality of the current sanitizers. So it's a bit of a long-winded way of saying that, yeah, we're really looking at a lot of different types of chemistries, the conventionals, the naturals, and the sanitizers, and then assessing them, for compatibility with our systems, right? So our drenchable formulations or sprayables and the thermal fog compliance, and ones that can perform at low temperature storage and extended periods of low temperature storages, or compatible with sanitizers and whatnot. So Yeah, so I hope that that answers the question there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then just to piggyback on that one, what information do you use to drive new developments? So when we talk about new technology and the different chemistries that are coming out, what is some specific information that you use to drive new technology developments?
Yeah, so I guess, maybe more broadly, right, when any type of space that we're exploring, we ensure that there's that customer need, right? So we need to, first, that's our first step, is understand what is required, what are the pain points that the industry is seeking solutions for. And then we understand, working with the customer, what are the performance expectations? What would you need to see in order for it to become interesting, right? And then once we kind of have the technical specs that we're seeking, then we tap into our network of scouting, of universities, of networks of startups, our partnerships with established suppliers, and we work on developing that solution, right? And so depending on where the solution ultimately comes from, our next step is to internally validate and make sure it works, right? And it meets those specifications. And then, once it kind of reaches some certain thresholds, right, then we start to, work back with the customer. And of course, the customer is always along with the journey in many cases, but kind of the early stages of finalization, we want to really understand with the customer whether what we can offer is meeting their needs. And so from a piloting perspective and getting that validation. So that's, very broad strokes, kind of the circle of innovation, from understanding what the need is, and then making sure that the performance specifications are understood, and that to get feedback as often and as early as possible to make sure that that we're on the right track.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Okay, so there was one other question that came in. We have two more. So one was about controlling green mold and citrus in India. And I think that for that one, what we'll do is we'll just connect with you individually with our team in that area to provide you information specifically for green mold on citrus in India. Unless anybody else wants to comment on that one, we can just follow up with that one at the end of the webinar. And then lastly, Stacey, you talked about Academy. So if you could just pinpoint on kind of how you would suggest utilizing Academy in rotation when it comes to resistance management.
Oh yeah, sure. That's a good question. So Academy has fludeoxonil and difenoconazole in it. It's a combination fungicide. So we would recommend, since it has fludeoxonil in it, to use it in your rotation in place of Scholar Max shears. I think would make the most sense.
Yeah, absolutely, because it has that fluty component.
Right.
And then you did mention that it is Decibate for starting in 2023. So we have that.
Correct. Yeah, that was kind of the biggest hurdle, I guess, for the industry the last few years in using Academy, since it is only drenchable. We are looking at, or I guess we're actively working on figuring out how to fog it. But for now, it's only used in the drench. So being able to dustabate it just like any of your other wastewater and fungicides, that's going to make it much more user friendly in the industry. So.
Absolutely. Great. One other question for you from the commercial side. So with Serafruta, what are the application options? So it's not a fog, it's not foggable, but people can drench it, correct?
Yeah, so it's drenchable, either in the field or on the packing line through a spray bar or a flood bar. So yeah, of course you can use it as a drencher. I think not many guys have truck drenchers that are dedicated purely for organics, but there have been a number of growers who are working on field drenching this product. So I think that's probably our most obvious point of use is in the field as a field drench at this time.
Great. Awesome. I don't see any other questions, but if there are any other questions, please send them through before the end, and we'll make sure to answer those for you guys. But for now, I just wanted to say thank you to Dr. Dan McLean, Juan Francisco, and Stacy for joining us today on our Q&A session. So thank you guys for all of your input. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen one more time. Just want to talk through the remaining topics that we have today, just to review what the schedule is for next time. So we have our last webinar will be specific to apples. So it is our Apple Complete, a total freshness solution that is all about the apple, which will cover all areas from pre-harvest all the way to the retail side, and all of our products in between. We'll be talking specifically about apples for North America. So we'll be hitting those varieties that are in the Pacific Northwest, as well as those in the East. So if there's any questions, we'll be doing that one on June 1st at the same time, so 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And then want to say thank you. Let us know how we did. If you guys scan the QR code and complete the quick survey, we would appreciate it. But for now, just want to say thank you, and we hope to see you guys again on June 8th. Or sorry, June 1st.